I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with author Frank Conrad Musumeci about his remarkable book, Events of an Ordinary Life. He is breathing new life into seemingly mundane experiences through an impressive blend of fiction, supernatural elements, and authentic events. This collection of tales not only transcends genres, but seamlessly intertwines comedy, suspense, and drama, promising an immersive and enjoyable reading journey. That is for sure. We're delighted to have Frank join us today on Spotlight. We thank the folks at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Frank, so good to see you today.
Thank you so much. Good to see you too.
This is quite a book, blending real life events with fiction and the supernatural. Where does this come from? Some kind of Hoboken dream or something?
Actually, the real life stories are from my experiences as a private detective. And some of the other stuff is just stories that I created, out of experience, speaking to people and knowing what their lives are all about and so forth.
Very cool. Private detectives, I can't help but think of like Philip Marlowe or Sam Spade. I'm a big fan of noir fiction. I love detective stories. How did you wind up becoming a private eye? Were you a police officer first?
No, it's a funny thing. When I was in my 20s, I took jujitsu and became an instructor. So now I'm in my mid-20s and I'm doing a private lesson. And we had a dojo that was kind of a storefront, and a gentleman came in. I was doing a private lesson, and scraggly kind of guy, tough looking. And I said, "Can I help you?" And he says, "Well, I was wondering if I can watch for a while because I've always been interested in, the martial arts." So I asked my student, a female student, I said, "Would you mind if he watches a while?" She said, No, it's okay." So at the end of the lesson, she left and he said, "I have a proposition for you." He said, "If you teach me jujitsu, I'll teach you the private detective game." So I said, "Well, that sounds pretty cool." And that's how it started.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. I'll teach you what I know, you teach me. So was most of your work matrimonial work as a PI?
Actually, he had a lot of different specialties. One of them was undercover operations in the private sector. So in other words, he would send an operative in to find out, if they're stealing or how much or what's going on. So he put me in a lot of those types of, events. And I was able to, because I was a musician and I was a long-haired musician, I play guitar. So that kind of helped me, because people don't think of a musician even listening.
Right.
Yeah, he's not going to know what's going on, and that helped me with these undercover operations. And then it just blended together, and I got a lot of information for him.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Frank is a narc. Everybody get out, flush your stuff. Particularly with the long hair and playing the musical instrument. Yeah, I'm sure you're able to embed yourself very easily. But you also gave you a lot to work with as far as stories go. So tell the folks at home what the point of this book is all about, and a little bit of an overview, if you would.
Okay, well, I've always been a writer. Even when I was a kid, I used to write stories. And later on, I found out that I can write music and songs. So I kind of blended it together. And I always tell people, a song is only a short story in rhyme and music. So it's the same thing, same principle. So like I said, I've always written. I started doing a blog at one point, and a friend of mine, a musician friend, said, "Hey, these stories are pretty good. Why don't you just, do a book?" And I said, "Okay." And by that time, I had like quite a few stories done, and then I just, put it into a book.
Very cool.
Well,
We're glad you did. Which of the stories is your favorite? I know it's like choosing among children, but is there one that you really like? Maybe it's the one you wrote first.
There's one about a PI friend of mine who he was a brilliant detective, and he did well, but he had no luck at all with anything. I mean, he would, do a job sometimes and it would go wrong, and or he would meet a woman and she would be the wrong person, to be with. And so and he was, no matter what, he always tried. And so I said, I have to write a story about him because he was a very interesting guy. And that was really one of the first stories that I did.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. I mean, it sounds like typical noir. It was a rainy day on Smith Street in Hoboken. The sun had cracked up over the horizon, and the dame had left me cold at the diner over eggs and grits.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Exactly, exactly. Great, great. So you must have had a lot of fun writing these books as well, these stories rather.
Yeah, I do. I do. I draw from people that I know, and I think everybody, including themselves, has like you know funny things about them that people notice, but you don't notice yourself about yourself. So a lot of these stories are about people that I knew, that I know, and just some of the quirky things that they do or say or whatever. That could turn into a whole story.
Yeah. But the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. And the guilty as well. That's for sure. Is this the first book you've written or compilation?
Actually, yes, yes. This is the first book, and I'm working on another one of short stories too. Well, and those are stories that I have been writing since the book came out. So I
Short
hope.
stories are great because in this very distracted world in which we live, it's good to be able to pick up a book, read, X number of pages and get the beginning, middle, and end all in one sitting, right?
Right, right, right. And that's what people tell me. It's kind of refreshing. They know that they can read a story and stop there and come back, some other time or weeks later and read another one. And they don't have to think about where they left off.
Exactly, exactly. And how long did it take you to gather the stories that you wrote for Events of an Ordinary Life? Is it stories you've written over the years?
Yeah, yeah. There's stories I've done, since well, for about 10 years.
Hmm.
Uh, they just accumulate. I mean, I didn't have any real reason to write them, just for
Right.
fun writing, and that's how they came about. And then as I went along and I spoke to friends, they said, well, you could blend these into a great book because the stories are different. They're a lot of different subjects. Um, and so that's what I did, and I found it was fun putting that together
Yeah.
and getting the stories in just the right uh, way.
Yeah.
It was
Absolutely.
good.
If you were to turn one of them into a movie or a series, which story would you like to bring to the screen?
I think I would like to do the stories about the PI
Yeah.
because many times, you'll see something on TV or in a movie, and some parts are authentic, but then some parts are like totally ridiculous, not real at all.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to kind of, do stories that show the realism of it, and uh, unfortunately, PI work, especially surveillance, is very boring when you're sitting there
Right.
waiting for something to happen for,
Yeah.
8, 12 hours and nothing happens. So I understand that they have to kind of condense it,
Right.
but I think those would be interesting for people.
Yeah, well, certainly there's a fascination with private detectives.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
interesting because it's kind of a small niche of society, yet
Right.
there's so
Right.
much of fiction, from Magnum PI
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Canon to Beretta to, you
Right.
name
Right.
it. There's been
Right.
a PI TV show or series or movie.
There's always one. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is your favorite? Which is the most realistic in your book?
I think the Rockford Files.
Yeah.
because he's always behind on his rent, and he lives in a trailer, and things don't go well for him, and he gets beat up all the time. So
Yeah.
I think that's more realistic than most of the other ones that are out.
Yeah, well, he kind of had an idyllic life. It was like Farrah Fawcett or somebody was his next door neighbor. He lived on wasn't there a beautiful woman who was like his next door neighbor? I think it was Farrah. I'm not sure.
In the
But
show,
somebody of that era, right?
there were so many actresses, that did his show. It was amazing.
Right.
Like every week there was somebody different. Anyway, they were all pretty famous and pretty popular actresses. So yeah, that part of it is a little far fetched.
Well, I was going to say that's why you like it, Frank, because it mirrors your life. What's your most memorable case before we leave you today? What's your most memorable case as a PI?
There was one where I was doing an undercover job in a brewery, and it was a very big company, and they had people stealing beer, but they were stealing it by the cases, and they were truckloads. So there were like 18 trucks that were stealing beer, and so they put me in as an undercover operative. And then at one point, the leader of the gang thought that I was a PI, and I was like a truck inspector, so I had to be there when they loaded the trucks.
Right.
And he just came around the truck, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye, and I said, something's wrong. He came up to me. He had two people with him. One of them pulled out a weapon. It was a 44 Magnum, and he put it to my ear. And he said, I think you're a plant. And I'm saying, what? Yeah. And I am like totally
Yeah, you're ready to
devastated.
fall.
I said, I'm gonna faint right here,
Yeah.
And luckily, we had words back and forth, and he said, well, he says, I'm not sure, but I can tell you this. If you are, you're a dead man. And that kind of, I said, maybe I shouldn't have gotten into this profession. Like,
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that the name of that story could be The Last Assignment, for sure.
For sure.
Did you wind up giving over the information you gathered? You said, nah, this isn't worth it.
Oh yeah, because that was toward the end of the investigation, and I had gathered. I was wired,
right,
sound, and I was, recording everything that was happening. Wow. And thank God that
thank God they didn't pat you down, right?
If they did, I wouldn't be here talking to
right.
you.
Yeah.
But by that time it was already toward the end of the investigation, and then they decided, okay, we're gonna, we're gonna wrap this up. What they were doing is I had given signals while I was out. They had surveillance units, and when the trucks would go out with extra beer, they would follow, and they were able to, videotape a lot of these guys selling beer, out of the truck.
Right. Right.
And so about 18 trucks were 18 people were indicted, and most of them were convicted except 2. So so it was a good investigation, but it was a little hairy for a while.
Right. Well, hopefully that guy's not watching this video right now and say, that's the guy who sent me up. He's gonna reap his revenge. Amazing.
This was a long time ago, so I don't even know if he recognizes me anymore.
Okay, good. That's good news. All right. Well, the name of the book is Events of an Ordinary Life. It is written by a real-life Sam Spade, Frank Conrad Musumeci, and it is an amazing book. It'll make you laugh like Frank and I are laughing today. It has supernatural elements. It has real-life elements. It's a collection of short stories that'll keep you turning the pages. Frank, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
The pleasure's all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.